Good morning everybody. In this video I am going to conduct the revision for the first midterm test. So our topic for the revision is our environment. And what do you mean by environment? It is the immediate surrounding of an organism. So we will discuss the points, a summary of the points, so that we can prepare for the exam. Then the first topic which is coming under that, it is ecosystem. So what do you mean by ecosystem? An ecosystem is a self-sustained unit of living things. So what do you mean by self-sustained? That means it can support by itself without any human intervention. So, and here it is a self-sustained unit of living things. There continuous interaction between biotic and abiotic components. So what do you mean by biotic components? Biotic components means in a system what all living organisms are present, they are interacting with each other, one or other way they are interacting with each other, and that components are called as biotic components. So all living components in an ecosystem is called as biotic component. Then abiotic, of course, if it is biotic, living means abiotic, absence of living, or we can say non-living organisms. So all the non-living organisms which are existing in an ecosystem, that is called as abiotic component. And typical example for an ecosystem is forest, pond, lake, green land, ocean, etc. And here the next, the types of ecosystem. So in normally the presence of natural ecosystem, we'll say, which exists by its own, and it is present in the nature. Forest, lake, ocean and all is acting as the natural ecosystem. But human beings also can make an ecosystem which can sustain by itself, but initially they need to construct the ecosystem, and that type of ecosystem is called as artificial ecosystem. Example, crop field, aquarium, garden, etc. Crop field, we have to set it, then only we can plant the sow the seeds and etc. Same way the aquarium also, initially we have to construct an aquarium and we have to keep biotic and abiotic components into that one, then it will can sustain by itself. So these are the two major types of ecosystem. Either it can be natural ecosystem or it can be artificial ecosystem. Then the components of an ecosystem, here I have given only the flow chart. It is very well explained, so we can go through that one. Abiotic means non-living components, air, water, land, temperature, wind, etc. All non-living components, light, all these components which is influencing the development of biotic components, then it is coming under the category of abiotic components. Then biotic components means plants, animals, and in that itself again it is divided into based on their food, type of food intake. We can say they are producers, consumers and decomposers. Producers, from the term itself you know, that is the organisms which can produce their own food by themselves. So we can say photoautotrophs and chemoautotrophs. That means either they can use light or they can use chemicals. So photoautotrophs, all the plants will come under photoautotrophs because they can perform the photosynthesis in the presence of light as well as the chlorophyll. Apart from that, there are another group that is called as chemoautotrophs. That means chemicals, they are, instead of light they are depending on chemicals. So iron bacteria, sulfur bacteria, nitrogen fixing bacteria, all that category will come under. They also can produce their own food, and hence all these photoautotrophs as well as chemoautotrophs all together comes under the category of producers. Then second category, it is consumers. Consumers means they cannot synthesize their own food, but instead of they consume the food prepared by the producers. They are called as consumers. And again the consumers are divided into many based on their type of food. They are, the first category is herbivores. Herbivores means they are directly eating the plants. Example, cow, goat, rabbit, etc., coming under the category of herbivore. Second category it is carnivore. Carnivore means they won't directly depend on the this one. Instead of that, they will eat the herbivores, or directly they won't eat plants, but they eat the flesh of other animals. They are called as carnivores. So tiger, lion, etc., will come under carnivore. The third category is omnivore. Omnivore means organisms which eat directly the plants or even the flesh of other animals or the meat. Then together they are called as omnivore. So which one? Typical example: sparrow, you can give, crow. All these coming under the category of omnivore. They will eat plants, the seeds, etc., or the plant materials, and at the same time small worms, etc., like that they can eat. Then the last category it is parasites. Parasites means they cannot eat, they cannot directly eat plant. They will not eat the flesh. Instead of that, they live either inside or outside the plant, outside the organism, and derive the food. So they seek food and shelter from the host. And in plants there are parasitic plants also. In animals also there are a category of parasites. In plant parasites, typical example cuscuta, which do not have any leaf, any proper stem or roots, but they are living on, or that means they will spread on the plants like a small thread-like structure. It is called as golden vine, yellowish in color, non-chlorophyllous. They cannot synthesize their food, but they will produce certain root-like extensions, and they will penetrate into the plant body and directly from the conducting tissues, that is xylem and phloem, they will absorb food and water, and they can survive. So they are parasitic plants, total parasitic plants. Typical example it is cuscuta. There are partial parasitic plants also, that is santalum, sandalwood and all, partial parasite. Then the next one it is, in among animals the parasites are there, that is external and ectoparasite and endoparasite. So what do you mean by ectoparasite? The parasite which lives on the body. Leech as well as the head louse is an example of, that is thalelepen, okay, and ticks, mites. On the pet animals also we can see ticks and mites. So all these are acting as the parasites which live on the body, okay, outside the body. Hence they are called as ectoparasites. Then endoparasites. Endoparasites means inside the body. If the organisms are living, then it is called as endoparasites. That is tapeworm, hookworm, then pinworm. All these categories are coming under that parasitic animals. Now we will move on to the, based on the consumers. Consumers, one more topic we left, that is decomposers. The third level of feeding habit or mode of nutrition is decomposers. Decomposers means they cannot synthesize, they cannot live on other organisms or inside the organisms, but they are they live on dead and decayed organisms, not the living body, dead and decayed organisms. Typical example bacteria and fungi. And how they are living on, they will secrete certain enzymes outside, that means to the dead organic matter, and there the digestion takes place and the needed nutrients will absorb through the body surface. So typical example for decomposers are bacteria and fungi. And here the decomposers plays a very good role in returning the nutrients back to the atmosphere, to the ecosystem, we can say, because all other producers will absorb sunlight, then water, minerals, etc., and they will synthesize the food that will be eaten by consumers. Consumers also will, after the death and decay of producers as well as the consumers, which all organic components, it is fixed in the form of their body, that nutrients will be returned back in the presence of, that will be converted back into minerals, and that is done by decomposers. So they are playing, they are retrieving all the nutrients that is absorbed from the atmosphere, from the ecosystem, will be returned back into. So recycle, they play a very good role in recycling the nutrients back into the ecosystem. Now we will move on to the consumers, little more detail, because consumers itself again categorized into 3-4 categories. We can say primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers. So here it is only the terms only different we have mentioned. What we mentioned previously, the same thing only, but even then the terms are very important. That is, primary consumers means the organisms which can consume the plants. That is, the first consumption, first utilization is taking place by a category of organisms. They are called as primary consumers. Primary consumers, a small mistake is there. Primary consumers, actually it is herbivores. That is not the plants. Primary consumers, herbivores. Okay, so because the plants are producers. So here you have to make a change. Here it is herbivores, primary carnivores, secondary carnivores, like that it will come. So here it is, instead of plants, here it is herbivores. Primary consumers means herbivores. The plants will be eaten by a group of consumers. That consumers are called as herbivores. So primary consumers, when we will say, you have to say the herbivores. Typical example, cow, goat, etc. Then the second term is secondary consumers. That means the plants will be eaten by, or the herbivores will be eaten by the secondary consumers. So rabbit can be eaten by tiger, rabbit can be eaten by lion. So that level of trophic level we can call it as secondary consumers. The third one, it is tertiary consumers. That means the primary consumers can be eaten by tertiary consumers. Suppose here, if you are constructing a food chain, we will discuss that one later. So primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers. The third point is decomposers. Already we have mentioned. That is, they include the organisms which decompose the dead plants and animals. Typical example, bacteria and fungi. And they help in replenishing the nutrients back into the ecosystem. So here only we are moving into the next term, that is food chain. Application level questions always they will ask. So what do you mean by food chain? Food chain is a series of organisms in which one organism eats another organism as food. Typical example is grass, deer, lion. So here this is a simple food chain that operates in a forest, we can say. So like that they will ask many questions based on application level. Diagrammatically represent, or in the form of a flow chart, you represent the food chain that operate in a forest or in a grassland or in a desert or in an aquatic ecosystem or in a freshwater ecosystem or in a marine ecosystem. Like that, many questions based on this they will ask. So there can be many steps. So when we are saying step, each step in a food chain is called as trophic level. So grass, here in this, grass will come under first trophic level, then deer will come under second trophic level, and lion will come under third trophic level. So grass, deer and lion, this is only 3 trophic level steps. Suppose if they are asking that diagrammatically represent a grassland ecosystem in which 4 trophic levels operates. So here you see the second diagram is, it is a diagrammatic representation only, and whenever you represent, there should be a forward directed arrow mark. Okay, forward directed arrow mark. Never it should be backward, always from producers to the herbivore. Okay, then from the herbivore to the secondary consumers. This is primary consumer, and this mouse is secondary consumer, owl is tertiary consumer. So in that way, forward direction, the arrow mark should be there. Arrow mark is compulsory. Instead of that line you are drawing means half mark they will reduce. So here, which is operating in a, always it should start with food chain, always it should start with producers. So that also very, very important. So in a food chain, many steps, where in each step transfer of energy takes place. So the purpose of food chain is the food is being transferred from one organism to another organism. So it is continuous in a chain like manner. So that is why we are representing all these things in this format. So here what for they are taking in food, it is for gaining the energy. So it is actually the main process of food chain, a process that is taking place within food chain is the transfer of energy. So transfer of energy from producers to consumers, and finally in decomposers. But food chain we have not mentioning about the decomposers. Here it is from producers to consumers in different steps, and each step in a food chain is called as trophic level. So all these things are very, very important. First trophic level means producers. Second trophic level means herbivores. Third trophic level means primary, secondary consumers. Secondary consumers. Then third trophic level means tertiary consumers. Like that it will go. The last step it is called as top consumer. Okay. Now we'll move on to the next concept. That is, here I have represented three different forms of types of food chain. So here the first one, the food chain, which consists of only three trophic levels. So plant, deer, tiger. The extreme right side, it is four trophic levels. Okay, the plant, in which the it can be called as that is algae, you can say, the phytoplankton in a forest. The last one, it is in a pond. Then there can be water insects also, you can write here. It is given a scorpion only, it's actually water insect. Then water insects can be eaten by fishes. Fishes can be eaten by the water birds. Okay. Then the middle one, it is in a grassland. So grass, grasshopper, frog, snake, and eagle. Okay, so here how many? The five trophic levels, 5 steps are there. So which are the 5 steps? The grass, grasshopper, then frog, then snake, then eagle. So like this way construct a food chain. So always it is, if it is like this, you are representing upward arrow. Okay, horizontally means this way, the forward directly directed arrow mark you have to keep it. So this is a typical example of aquatic food chain. So here always aquatic food chain they are asking means you have to start with phytoplankton, PHYTO. Phytoplankton means photosynthetic, small free floating forms of, so one celled life, phyto, PHYTO. And then you can add one more, that is zooplankton. That means animal like. They cannot synthesize their food. They are coming under heterotrophs, or we'll say heterotroph only. Here it is phototrophs. So here phytoplankton, if you are writing, means here you have to write zooplankton. Then the zooplanktons can be eaten by small fish can be eaten by large fish. So like that way you have to represent it. And in a pond means you can start with phytoplankton, then frog, then fish, then fish, then large fish, like that, small fish, large fish. So it can be either marine or it can be freshwater, pond or ocean. Like that way different forms it can be asked. Then these are the food chains. Another representation just for based on the consuming level. So here you see grass, which is coming under producer level, and grasshopper, that also coming under primary consumer. Okay, primary consumer. That means the trophic level is second. This is first trophic level, this one is second trophic level. And here snake, grasshopper can be eaten by snakes, secondary consumer, third trophic level. Okay, secondary consumer, third trophic level. Then eagle, fourth trophic level, but consumer level when we are saying tertiary consumers. Then all its death and decay, it will be acted upon by decomposers, bacteria and fungi. So this organic components will be acted upon by decomposers, and all the organic components, the nutrients will be returned back into the soil. So you can see a cycling of nutrients from producers to consumers, then to decomposer, and again back into the soil. So this is that representation only. Now trophic level, the definitions, the various steps through which food energy passes in an ecosystem is called as trophic level. Trophic levels are arranged in the following way. That is, the green plants or producers represent the first trophic level. Herbivores or primary consumers represent second trophic level. Carnivores or secondary consumers represent third trophic level. Tertiary consumers represent fourth trophic level. Finally, decomposers represent last trophic level. Then the same way, when we observe in the nature, as such the food chain will not be existing as it is in a compartmentalized manner. That is, the crow will eat worms, the crow will eat the plant waste. The same way the frog will eat the planktons. The frog can eat even the small organisms. The snake will eat frog. The snake can eat even rat, like that way. So their There is no compartmentalization of that only that particular food is being eaten by the other a particular food no, organism. There will be an interconnecting pattern of various food chains in an ecosystem. That is called as food web. So interconnected food chain is called as food web. In a food web, many food chains are interconnected where different types of organisms are connected at different trophic levels. Example, grass may be eaten by insects, rats, deer, etc. They may be in turn eaten by carnivores, snake, tiger, etc. Thus, there is an interlocking of various food chains that is called as food web. So, this is a typical food web. When you are asked to draw the food web, you have to draw always, it should start with producers, that is plant or grass or any like that should be there. When you represent here, you see it is plants can be eaten by goat and plants can be eaten by rabbit, plants can even eaten by mouse. Then you may ask, how can mouse can eat the plants? Mouse is eating the grains of plant. Okay, grains of plant, that means mouse is in this level, mouse is a herbivore. So then it can be interconnected in different ways. All these things you have to see, and sometimes the questions will be there. Note down the points or note down the examples, or take down the examples which come under primary consumers. So primary consumers means all these things will come under primary consumers. Or first trophic level, if they are asking, means this one plant will become the first trophic level, this one will become the second trophic level. This can be either second trophic level or third trophic level, in depending upon. So here also either fourth or third depending upon, because it's all interconnected. So application level questions can be asked. This is grassland food web only. Already I have shown you during the main class session. Grass, then zebra you can write, then elephant also herbivore, zebra also herbivore, then tiger, even lion, then worms also it is given, birds also it's given. So you have to construct a food chain from this. Then this is this one is the picture that is from the textbook I have taken. The same picture, interconnected food web, and but here you can see 4 different separations with a green line. So it is the bottom level, all it is occupied in first trophic level. The second level indicates they are in the second trophic level, and this one third trophic level, fourth trophic level. So in that way, sometimes the questions will be asked to demarcate. So if it is like that way, means you have to demarcate with a separate line, and first trophic level, second trophic level, third trophic level, fourth trophic level. Or from this they interconnected without arrow mark, they will give a picture and you will be asked to construct a food web. So all these are the practical oriented or application level questions. Different patterns, different levels, they can ask the question. And food web. So this is the definition. In nature, large number of food chains are interconnected, forming a food web. So if a list of animals will be given, and you will be asked to construct a food web. So in this, you have to draw the arrow marks always upward direction. Okay, always it should start with producers, then herbivores, a list of herbivores, then carnivores. So in this way, a list of animals will be given. You will be asked to construct the food web. Then next term it is energy flow. So when we studied all these plants, they can synthesize their food in the presence of sunlight. So sunlight is the ultimate source of energy. So from sunlight, here I have marked 1% of the total sunlight, 1% only can be utilized by the producers. So if it is 10 kilojoules of solar energy is produced, means 1% of that 10 kilojoules only can be produced by the producers. That is 10 means 0.1 kilojoules. Okay, 0.1 kilojoules only can be produced by this. 10 means 1% means 0.01. 0.01% of that one only it can be produced. Then from producers onwards, out of how much they are totally fixed in the form of starch, From there, only 10% can be converted into, can be passed on to the next trophic level. So from producers, from this part only in your textbook it is there. That is the conversion of energy, or the transport of energy, or the transfer of energy. The producers, 10% of energy only can be utilized by the consumers. The remaining 90% will be lost to the atmosphere, either in the form of heat or the respiratory loss, etc. So here 90% will be utilized by the producers for one or other way, either respiration or their body functions, and little bit it is escape into the atmosphere as heat energy. So the remaining 10%, so 100 kilojoules are produced here, means the energy will be only 10% will be available to the primary consumers. Then again from the primary consumers, secondary consumers, again 10%. Then like that it will be consumed. Then finally the consumers as well as the plant producers will be eaten by, or will be utilized by the herbivore decomposers. They will be returned back, and then the nutrients will be given to the nutrient pool in the soil. So this is the flow chart of energy flow. And flow of energy between the trophic levels, that is the flow of energy in a food chain is always unidirectional. So what do you mean by unidirectional? That is solar energy from producers to the consumers. Okay, solar energy from producers to the consumers. So there is a unidirectional flow of energy takes place. So always the flow of energy in the food chain is unidirectional. And green plants capture 1% of sunlight, I have explained in the diagram, and convert it into food energy. That means it is stored in the form of starch by photosynthesis. Then from that 10% of that only can be passed on to the next trophic level. That is from the producers to the primary consumers. Then 10% from the primary consumers to the secondary consumers. Then 10% from the secondary consumers to the tertiary consumers. So the remaining 90% of energy in each step is utilized for the life process, such as digestion, growth, reproduction, etc. So it is because of that we will say in an ideal, or in the nature, there can be of maximum 3 to 4 trophic levels. Why it is said so 3 to 4 trophic levels? Because when it is, if the number of trophic levels is going on increasing, means the amount of transfer of energy will be very negligible. So normally in an ecosystem there can be, because only 10% of what previous level they are having, that only will be transferred to the next level. So there will be if the number of trophic levels increases more than 4 or 5, then the negligible energy only will be available to the top carnivore. So that cannot, the top carnivore cannot sustain with that negligible energy. So minimum or maximum there can be 3 to 4 or even 5. More than 5 there won't be any existence. Okay. Then we will move on to the primary pyramid of energy. Pyramid of energy means it is a graphical representation of the transfer of energy from producers to the tertiary consumers, or tertiary or the consumer levels. We are representing in a graphical format, that is called as pyramid of energy. So here you see the pyramid of energy, it is always in a triangular form. The base of the pyramid will be always producers, occupied by the producers. That means first trophic level. The second one is second trophic level, which is occupied by primary consumers. And here it comes the tertiary consumers, third trophic level occupied by secondary consumers. And here it comes the top trophic level, and it is consumed by the tertiary consumers. So here this is the graphical representation. When you are asked to represent the pyramid of energy that operate in a grass level, forest means here you have to write plants. Then here you have to write rabbit. Here you have to write tiger. Which one? The rabbit. It is by snake. Then you can write the which one? The eagle or anyone. Or tiger, lion, like that, and you can construct according to your convenience, but you have to see that the consumer level is going in this progression. Okay. Then on the right side, so here you are writing primary consumer, secondary consumer, all those things. Simultaneously on the right side you have to write a numerical value, that is producers produce 1000 kilojoules, means 10% only to the next, that means 100, and here it is 10. and the top carnivores will get only 1 kilojoule. That is why in an ideal ecosystem there can be maximum of 3 to 4. If it is more than 4 means they will get only 0.1 kilojoule. That will not be sufficient for that particular level animal to survive. So that is why in an ideal ecosystem there can be maximum of 3 to 4 trophic level. Now the next entirely different topic only, that is biomagnification. Biomagnification or bioaccumulation, and all we'll say, that is when we are applying too much of pesticides and too much of fertilizers and all, when you are applying, the concentration of harmful chemicals will increase with every next trophic level in the food chain. That means when you are adding DDT, some amount of DDT will be attached to the plants. When the plants are eaten by cow, the cow will get more amount, because the cow is not eating one grass every day. They will eat many number of grass. So all these grass which is attached with the DDT will go on accumulating in the cow. And when we are eating the flesh of cow or milk or different substances, then from the cow it is non-biodegradable. All these pesticides cannot be digested by our digestive system. So it will accumulate in the flesh, it will accumulate in the body. So when you are eating the flesh, along with the flesh, the DDT which is retaining there, that also will accumulate. We are not eating only one day, every meals we are eating all these food substances which is attached with the pesticides. So in our body it will keep on accumulating. So with as it passes from producer level to the carnivore, who will get the maximum accumulation? The top carnivore. So most often the human beings will be the top carnivore, and in our body it will keep on accumulating. So that process is called as biological magnification or biomagnification. Maximum concentration of such chemicals get accumulated in human body, and human occupy the top level in food chain. So that is called as biomagnification. Then as these chemicals are not degradable or not biodegradable, you have to write that sentences, half mark for that, and it will accumulate progressively, next half mark, at each trophic level through food chain, next half mark. Okay, half, and then half mark. The human beings occupy the top level. So then next half mark, 2 mark question means like that only the half mark will go on, and it will accumulate in our bodies, and this phenomenon is called as biomagnification. So typical example is DDT. Increase in concentration of toxicant at successive trophic levels through food chain is called as biomagnification. So biomagnification of DDT in aquatic food chain. So here if it is in an aquatic food chain means it will be the DDT, excess amount of DDT what we are spraying in the paddy field or in the crop field and all will leach into the nearby water body. So when it is entering into the water body, who will eat? The phytoplankton will eat, zooplankton will eat, and from there the birds will eat. So maximum accumulation the birds will get, and like that complications will arise. Now we'll move on to the environmental problems, that is the pollution. Mainly human activities will interfere, and that can lead to pollution and deforestation. So here this is a small representation of biomagnification. So you see on the extreme left side I have represented the dots that represents the DDT. So the phytoplanktons, you see the phytoplanktons, they will have, if it is 2 means then the zooplankton, when many phytoplanktons will be eaten by zooplankton. So here you see it is accumulated, because not only one phytoplankton, every day they will eat, so the content will double it. Then when it is eaten by fish, then again it will keep on increasing. Then small fish is eaten by large fish, more accumulation. Large fish, when it is eaten by eagle or owl, it will again, the number will increase. So this process or accumulation of toxic components from the lowermost trophic level to the highest trophic level, and there it accumulates and cause the harmful effects on that one, that is called as bioaccumulation. There is another, this is another one only, the same way, phytoplankton, zooplankton, small fish, large fish and eagle. It's a representation. In that way you can represent for the exam if it is 3 marks question. Okay, represent in this way. and here it is the amount, the parts per million, ddt 0.00 parts per million. It will keep on increasing, that is 0.04 million. In that way finally it will be accumulated. Now we'll move on to the next one, environmental problems. I said 1 minute. Ozone layer, the next one, it is ozone. So ozone layer is a protective blanket. We know ozone umbrella because when the within the in the atmosphere, the ozone which is formed, that will form like a blanket. So it is called as protective blanket around the earth, which absorbs most of the harmful radiations, UV rays. Okay, it will protect us from the harmful effects of UV rays. That is, it is produced by the sunlight. Then it can cause that is, if any thinning of our human interference, our activities can make the dissociation of ozone into oxygen and free molecular oxygen. So as a result, that ozone umbrella, here and there can be holes. Holes means there is thinning of ozone will result in, and through that ultraviolet rays can enter into the atmosphere, and from there it can expose, our body can expose to this UV radiation. So typical example, health hazards facing due to this thinning of ozone layer and the entry of ultraviolet radiations can lead to skin cancer, cataract, snow blindness, blurring effect of the eye, all these things. So typical examples for the after effect of thinning of ozone layer, if they are asked, means you have to write these three examples. And how can it, even destruction of plants, chlorophyll and all other plant, the protective covering and all can be destroyed. Then ozone layer, where it is present, ozone layer is present at the higher levels of atmosphere, that means stratosphere, the second layer. The bottom layer is troposphere, then just above that only stratosphere. So in the troposphere, the ozone will be forming, that will be accumulated within the stratosphere. If it is retaining in the troposphere, it is bad for us, and if it is accumulating in the stratosphere, there only it forms the ozone umbrella. So stratosphere, so this is the pictorial representation. The ozone which is formed from here only, molecular oxygen and the oxygen molecule O2 plus O gives rise to O3. So this O3 will accumulate in the stratosphere. From there, our human activities, especially the AC, aerosol, jet propellants, etc., will consist of a special type of chemical that is called as chlorofluorocarbon, CFC we'll say. This chlorofluorocarbon will act as a catalyst because they can release chloride. In the presence of chloride, the oxygen dissociation, ozone dissociation will take place. So more CFC when we are using, more chloride molecules will be eliminated. That chloride will act as the catalyst that will mediate the action between oxygen and ozone. Okay, oxygen molecule and the molecular oxygen. So O2 plus O will result in O3. In return, O3 again can dissociate into O2 and O. So this imbalance is induced by, or imbalance in the formation of ozone can be induced by the molecular, the catalyst that is formed from CFC. CFC means chlorofluorocarbon. In that, chloride will be released. That chloride can result or can lead to or act as a catalyst for the thinning of ozone layer. So this ozone layer, when it is thinning, in that umbrella there can be holes. So this is the diagrammatic representation of holes in the umbrella. So through that, the solar radiation, ultraviolet, powerful, harmful ultraviolet radiation, ultraviolet B, ultraviolet C, and or B is very harmful. So that UV rays B can enter into our atmosphere, and then it can cause harmful effects such as skin cancer, sunburn, etc. All we are familiar. So this is the representation of how the ozone molecule is forming. So here it is high energy UV radiations break down ozone molecule, oxygen molecule into free molecules. So O2 will divide. Here it is O2 only. O2 will divide into two molecular atoms. That is two atoms, that is oxygen atoms. This oxygen atom then combine with a molecular oxygen molecule, then they can form ozone. So O two molecular oxygen oxygen molecule plus one oxygen atom, together they can form ozone. Then this ozone only, again you see the representation from the sunlight, molecular atoms, they are dissociating, that this atom can combine with a molecular oxygen, then 3O, okay, O3. So this is one, and it can, again, it is not only forward direction, it can reverse back also. That means O3 can again split back into molecular oxygen and oxygen atom. So once it is deposited on the stratosphere as ozone umbrella, sometimes more amount of CFC, when you are using that, chloride will be released. That chloride can result in dissociation of this one into back into molecular oxygen and oxygen atom. So there it can cause the hole, and that hole is called as ozone hole. Then the decrease in the thickness of the ozone layer over Antarctica was first observed in 1985 and was termed as ozone hole. The decrease was linked to excessive use of synthetic chemicals such as chlorofluorocarbons, and are used in, where we are using refrigerator, coolant agent, okay, coolant agent in refrigerators, AC, fire extinguishers, aerosol sprays. That means aerosol sprays means we are using perfumes and all. In such case, the chlorofluorocarbon is the one of the ingredient. So this one, jet propellers, another one, jet propellers. All these things, the CFC is released as a result of, when we are running all these machines, they will produce more amount of CFC. CFC release chloride, and that chlorine will act as the catalyst, which will dissociate, which help in dissociating ozone back into oxygen and oxygen atom. So this ozone umbrella, that whole layer will gradually become thin and holes can appear. Then we have taken many steps to reduce the consumption of CFC. How can we reduce that? Is United Nations Environment Program, UNEP. They succeeded in forging an agreement. They convened a meeting, and they made all the multinational companies or the countries itself to encourage the multinational companies to reduce the emission of CFC, to reduce the production of ozone depleting substance, we can say ODS, ozone depleting substance. So in that agreement, all the countries have signed that they will take initiative to reduce the ODS or ozone depleting substances, mainly the chlorofluorocarbon products. That is in the year 1986. That protocol is called as Kyoto Protocol. The same way, another protocol is there, Montreal Protocol. Now we'll move on to the waste disposal. That is the last part of our textbook. That is as a result of human activities, human population explosion and all, we are using every day. Now the culture is use and throwing. Then throw away culture, we can say. As a result, we are throwing all the waste what we are using it to the neighboring places. So all these are dumped, and that one collectively we'll call it as garbage. And the garbage itself can be of two types, that is biodegradable and non-biodegradable. So what do you mean by biodegradable? The substances which can be decomposed by the action of microorganisms such as bacteria and fungi, and they are collectively called as biodegradable waste. Example, fruit, vegetable peels, cotton, jute, then dung, paper, etc. Sometimes they will give a list of items, and from that you will have to separate the biodegradable and non-biodegradable. So that one only I have given. Then non-biodegradable means which cannot be acted upon by the decomposers, and they will retain forever, and they can lead to the pollution of the surroundings. So that is collectively called as non-biodegradable waste. Typical examples: plastic, polythene bags, polythene substances, polythene pipes, etc. Then metals, synthetic fibers. Synthetic fibers means polyester shirt. Usually they will give for the exam polyester shirt or polyester sari or polyester cloth, etc. Like that way only they will give. Otherwise biodegradable means cotton shirt, cotton sari, like that. Cotton sari, cotton shirt and all will come under biodegradable because cotton is a plant product. Polyester means polyester. Okay, polyester, it's a chemical. So synthetic fibers, like that common term means you have to group it in non-biodegradable waste. Then radioactive waste, pesticide, DDT. Typical example is DDT. So pesticides all, it is non-biodegradable. It can lead to bioaccumulation. So you'll be asked to separate the things into categories. So in that way, biodegradable and non-biodegradable. Then what about leather belt? Sometimes they will ask, they will give leather belt. Leather is produced from the skin of animals, so it is biodegradable. So whenever you are categorizing, you have to just choose that whether they are of animal origin or plant origin. Okay, then if it is animal origin and plant origin means definitely it should come under biodegradable, and if it is chemicals means then it should be categorized under non-biodegradable. This is the graphical chart form: waste materials, biodegradable, non-biodegradable, in that way. Then we will move on to decomposition. As already I said that decomposers will produce enzymes, and they act on external digestion. They will digest and the needed nutrients will be diffused into the body. Then how can we remove the waste? So already we said the biodegradable can be acted upon by the decomposers. So it can return back into the nature itself. So how can we dispose this type of biodegradable waste? So first and foremost is biogas plant. You all are familiar that all the waste can be deposited in a tank, that is either concrete tank, nowadays plastic tanks also are available, and you can add to that the cow dung slurry, and when you are mixing it and you are closing it, automatically the bacteria which is present in the cow dung will act on this one, and there the decomposition will take place, and as a result a waste product, that is methane will act as the biogas, and we can use for cooking and other purpose, and the remaining substance is called as manure, can be utilized to add or to enrich the soil fertility. So here first of all you will get biogas, then manure. At the same time it will prevent accumulating the waste in that, and we can avoid contracting the diseases, we can avoid the pollution, etc. Second one, it is sewage treatment plant. Sewage means the canals and drainage systems, etc. So the wastewater will drain into the nearby canals, and also that water can be cleaned in the presence of a group of bacteria, and that plant as such we will call it as sewage treatment plant. This sewage treatment plant will allow the aerobic bacteria followed by anaerobic bacteria, and then we can remove then as a component even biogas also will be produced, and after the action of all these aerobic as well as anaerobic bacteria, the water will be purified, then the pure water can be drained out into the nearby rivers. And the same way itself there are three steps: primary treatment, secondary treatment, and tertiary treatment. Primary means aerobic the mechanical filtration. First we will filter it and we will remove all the waste, then we will act biological treatment. That means the bacteria will be acting, first the aerobic bacteria, then anaerobic bacteria. So all the waste materials will be eaten up by the bacteria. Then the third step, that is now in our Kerala and all we are not doing that one because we have enough water here. In Arabian countries they will do that also, because they will clean the water. That water they will ozonization, then bleaching, ozonization, and chlorination, bleaching, chlorination, and ozonization. Like that way they will make it, and that water can be again used as the drinking water. In our place it is just secondary level only. Directly after the treatment of secondary level it can be drained into the rivers. Even that water can be used as pure water by adding bleaching powder, then boiling, then ozone to kill the microbes and all, then that water will be pure. It can be used for drinking purpose. So that is the advantage of sewage treatment. So it will not allow the sewage to get deposit and pollute the water. Instead of that, it has to be sent into a plant, a treatment plant, that is called a sewage treatment plant, and the water can be purified, so it won't make much harm to the pollution to the water in the river or in the water bodies, instead of directly dumping into the river body. Now the third one is landfilling. That means we can separate the waste, and the waste can be buried in low-lying areas. Kulichumuda will say. They are compacted by rolling with bulldozers. Then it can be covered with soil. Then composting. Already we have said composting. The organic waste are filled in compost pit and covered with a layer of soil. After about 3 months, the garbage changes into manure. So these are the four methods. Then how can we avoid the pollution? There are 3 hours or 4 hours, nowadays 5 hours also are there. So that is the first and foremost, we can refuse. Many of the things we can refuse. So hereafter I am not going to use the plastic, this one plastic ban. It is implemented in Kerala. That is one of the first step, that is refuse. We have the freedom to refuse many of the non-biodegradable waste producing substances. Then second one, it is reduce, minimize the use. So whenever I am going out, I can use my own carry bag. So I need not depend on the bags from outside. So we can minimize. Then reuse. I can reuse the paper, newspaper or any other things again for making envelope, for wrapping the things. So we can use it many times. So that is called as reuse. Then the last and foremost, that is recycling. So the plastic and all, we can again recycle it and make it for making any other. So recycling. So refuse, reduce, reuse, recycling and repurpose. Last one, 5S means repurpose. We can use it for any other purpose other than this. So if any bottles and all, means you can decorate it and you can make it as a tabletop curies and all. So like that way, attractive things and all, and you can, or you can use it as pen holder. In that way it is called as repurposing. So 5 hour, it can be 3 hour, it can be 4 hour, it can be even 5 hour. Repurposing means 5 hour. Now we'll move on to the summary of this one. Ecosystem components. It is divided into biotic and abiotic. Biotic components, again it is divided into producers, decomposers and consumers. Abiotic components are inorganic components, organic components such as carbohydrate, proteins, lipids and climatic factors, that is atmosphere and soil, temperature, water, etc. All those things will come under that one. Then consumers, again it is divided into herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, secondary consumers and tertiary consumers. Then model questions I am including because we are going to appear for the first midterm. So this is only the model of model question papers. It can be 1-word questions, 2-mark questions, 3-mark questions. So here a food chain always starts with photosynthesis or producers, you can say. Then ozone layer is damaged by CFC. Then which one of the following, like this questions they will ask, which one of the following limits the number of trophic levels in a food chain. So accordingly you have to write it. Then it can be, the questions need not be always multiple choice question, objective questions. It can be 1 word. Name the main source of energy in self-sustaining ecosystem. Sunlight. Write an aquatic food chain. So aquatic food chain means always it with phytoplankton, zooplankton, small fish, large fish. In between the flowchart presentation or writing, flowchart means forward arrow, it is compulsory. Then revision questions. Write an aquatic chain, give scientific terms for the following. Then what is meant by environment, name its components. What is 10% unidirectional flow of energy from producers through consumers, through herbivores, carnivores, then finally into the top carnivores, and each step only 10% of the total energy from the previous trophic level to the next trophic level. So this law is proposed by Lindman. What is artificial ecosystem? It is by the human in help the ecosystem can be constructed. That type of ecosystem is called as artificial ecosystem. Example, paddy field, then aquarium, etc. You can write it. Then DDT that was sprayed in a minute amount on food plants was detected at high concentration in man. How did it happen? It is by the process of bioaccumulation or biomagnification. And explain. So you have to explain the whole procedure. Describe how ozone layer is formed. So ozone formation you have to explain, and where it is deposited in the stratosphere, and they can form ozone umbrella, and if it more use of CFC means how it can cause the thinning of ozone, and what are the harmful effects. All these points, if 3 marks means you have to explain, 2 marks means only the formation of ozone layer. Then what are the major components of ecosystem? Biotic and abiotic. Explain each and every point. Why are there some substances biodegradable and some substances are non-biodegradable? The substances which are acted upon by the decomposers are called as biodegradable. 1 or 2 examples you have to write it. And often they will ask differentiate between food chain and food web. Whenever the differentiate questions are asked, you have to draw the tabular form or column table form, then you have to represent first point, second point and third point in that way with the example. Okay, so here it is the sequence of eating and being eaten among the living organisms for the transfer of energy, food energy. It is called as food chain, and it is having 4 to 5 populations or 4 to 5 trophic levels of different species. It is a part of food web. Then it is a food web means it is an interconnected food chain and network of food chain which involves different types of organism. It is having numerous trophic levels with different species. It contains many food chain. Then we'll move on to the then one example for each you have to represent it. With this we have come into the conclusion. Okay, all of you have to write confidently and score maximum marks. Thank you.